to the legally insufficient affirmative defenses, which includes the 12th affirmative defense, failure to mitigate. Defendants' 12th affirmative defense asserting failure to mitigate is legally insufficient and must be stricken. The failure to mitigate doctrine is fundamentally incompatible with Section 1983 constitutional claims because constitutional violations create intangible harms to dignity, liberty, and fundamental rights that cannot be mitigated through plaintiff action. Moreover, courts consistently hold that a plaintiff has no duty to mitigate constitutional violations where mitigation would require surrendering the very constitutional rights at issue. In this case, plaintiff exercised her clearly established right to trial de novo after municipal court. Accepting defendant's pre-hearing offer to pay the cheapest fine would have required abandoning this constitutional right. The complaint of harm resulted entirely from defendant's deliberate constitutional violations over a period of 5 years. Issuing void arrest warrants during pending appeal, refusing to comply with court orders to amend complaints, maintaining enforcement efforts without jurisdiction, and operating without systems to track appeals. Plaintiff could not mitigate these deliberate municipal actions. This bare legal conclusion fails to meet basic pleading standards for affirmative defenses. Maintaining this legally frivolous defense will mislead the jury, require unnecessary discovery on irrelevant theories, waste judicial resources, and prejudice plaintiff by suggesting constitutional violations can be mitigated away. Then the 20th affirmative defense, they moved for attorney's fees. Defendant's 20th affirmative defense merely states defendants are entitled to an award of attorney's fees. This is procedurally improper for multiple reasons. First, as established in Blanchard v. Burgeon, attorney's fee awards under 1988 are remedial in nature and determined through the lodestar method after liability has been established. This post-judgment calculation process cannot logically function as an affirmative defense. Second, defendants in 1983 cases may recover attorney's fees only if the action was frivolous, unreasonable, or without foundation. This determination necessarily occurs after the merits have been resolved and cannot be adequately pleaded as an affirmative defense. An affirmative defense must raise matters extraneous to plaintiff's prima facie case that avoid defeat or minimize the claims. A request for attorney's fees does neither. It is a separate remedial matter that, as Blanchard establishes, serves to enable the enforcement of civil rights laws rather than defeat claims on their merits. For these reasons, the court should strike defendant's 20th affirmative defense as procedurally improper and not properly pleaded as an affirmative defense. Prejudicial and impertinent affirmative defenses. 14th affirmative defense, reservation, Federal Rules Civil Procedure 8C defenses. Defendant's 14th affirmative defense states defendants reserve all available defenses under Federal Rules Civil Procedure 8C. This is not a proper affirmative defense, but an attempt to circumvent the pleading requirements of Rule 8C. The proper mechanism for preserving defenses is found in Rule 12H, which specifically outlines which defenses can be raised later and which are waived if not timely asserted. Defendants cannot create their own preservation mechanism outside this framework. The federal rules were designed to streamline litigation and promote the just, speedy, and inexpensive determination of every action. Defendants' attempted reservation directly undermines these goals in multiple ways. When defendants preserve all available defenses, plaintiffs must conduct discovery on every conceivable theory of defense, dramatically expanding the scope and cost of litigation. This directly conflicts with Rule 26's mandate for proportional discovery and Rule 1's goal of inexpensive resolution. The federal rules aim to encourage early identification of issues to facilitate settlement or narrow litigation. Defendant's approach does the opposite. It maintains maximum uncertainty to preserve tactical advantages contrary to the rule's transparency principle. Rule 26F requires parties to meet and confer about case planning. This undermines the collaborative approach modern litigation requires. Therefore, this affirmative defense should be stricken. 15th affirmative defense, unclean hands. Defendant's unclean hands defense, 1, fails to plead any facts alleging misconduct by plaintiff beyond exercising constitutional appeal rights and reporting violations. 2, the defense has no application in Section 1983 civil rights actions where the purpose is to vindicate constitutional rights, and allowing municipalities to raise unclean hands against people exercising proper appeal procedures would undermine Section 1983's remedial purpose. 3, defendants cannot establish the required nexus between any alleged conduct and their own 5-year pattern of constitutional violations, including admitting no appeal tracking system, ignoring court orders, and issuing warrants without jurisdiction. And 4, allowing this defense would severely prejudice plaintiff through discovery abuse into privileged matters, jury confusion that might excuse defendants' systematic constitutional violations, chilling of constitutional rights, and strategic harassment designed to punish plaintiff for challenging unconstitutional practices. The defense is particularly inappropriate where plaintiff seeks prospective equitable relief requiring institutional reform to implement case tracking procedures for future appellants, making any alleged misconduct consisting of exercising appeal rights wholly irrelevant to the requested relief that would benefit the public interest by preventing future constitutional violations against the people. The unclean hands defense is particularly inapplicable to Section 1983 actions, as equitable defenses cannot bar constitutional or statutory rights without clear legislative intent. Moreover, equitable doctrines like unclean hands must align with Section 1983's remedial purpose of deterring and redressing government misconduct. Defendants' failure to plead specific misconduct with a direct nexus to their violations renders the defense insufficient.